Because it's short. We can do it in 45 minutes, is what you're going to say?
On executive session.
We have to do it. No,
Move
it's
along,
not.
move along, move along.
Call meeting to order, and we'll stand to do the pledge. Everybody online hear me? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
O Lord, as we gather this day to do work business for the people of the living and wicked, grant us wisdom and passion to be obtained. Amen.
All right, so the first thing on the agenda, as usual, is public comment. We do have a couple people online, a couple people in the room.
So that,
Where is not on my, neither is it. It was on 701, so I'll let you know. Does anybody have any public comment?
I do.
I do.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Jim McFadden. I'm the county treasurer. I'm here tonight representing the county. I'd like to ask the village permission if I could use the grandstand right in front of the track, in front of the grandstand, for our annual public auction of foreclosed properties. I was hoping to run on, let it rip on Thursday night, August 6th, but now the judiciary is holding things up, so I can't give you an exact date. But if I could, I think it'd be perfect compared to our, normally we have at the county auditorium. And of course, with this virus, separating people in the grandstands or in the bleachers there, 6 feet apart, a lot of parking and all that, would probably be the best avenue for our auction, at least this year. And we're going to probably get a big crowd. We usually auction off about 30, 35 properties, and we're looking at like 50. So that's why I'm looking for a bigger venue anyhow, something that's going to be safer. So until the judiciary tells us we can let it rip, I don't know if it's some night in August or maybe September. We'll let you know. But I can work with Jeff and make sure we lock it back up by dark that night. And usually about 5 to 9 in the ways, one night in front of the grandstand. So, any questions at all?
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry. I'm just wondering, if we do this, we have to have some kind of a plan in place, like in writing as to how you're going to implement the distance and the mask, or whatever the implementation is that the government decides at this time, or whatever time it is.
Seems like everyone's got to do that, huh?
I just want to make sure we're covering all of our bases.
Yeah. Depending on the crowd, at first I thought just put people in the bleachers in front of the grandstand, but if the crowd's large enough and you have to separate them by 6 feet, then we'll have to probably use part of the grandstand too. But yeah, we could put a plan together if necessary. Not a bad idea, I guess. And, we would need electrical hookup too for some amplifiers and microphones.
I think they have that over there.
And also my auctioneer, Matt Massey, has liability insurance as goes to the county. So, yeah.
Rusty?
After public comment is over, I have a motion to make along that line.
Anything else?
Anybody else have any questions for Jim?
But I'll work with Jeff Souls on it. We'll put a plan together.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Jeff just joined the call too, so he's online. Anybody needs it. Anybody else public comment? Good. All right, so we want to do,
Let's do this.
yeah, Russ. Yeah, do
We're
Russ.
done. Public comments closed.
Yep,
Can I go on word?
yeah, go ahead.
I move that the board authorize the mayor at his discretion to allow the Tioga County Treasurer and associates to use Marvin Park for the Tioga County annual foreclosure auction.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion about that? That's a good idea, nice big wide space.
Listen,
Sure.
Covered.
Brad?
Yes.
Cheryl?
Yes.
Laura is joining. Rusty?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
And Laura, this is a motion to allow the county to use Marvin Park for the foreclosure auction. Instead of the county auditorium, they want a bigger space.
The motion is to allow you to make the decision at your discretion.
What's that?
They want to do an outdoor auction from our park.
Correct, yeah, instead of doing it inside in the county building.
Okay, can you tell me the date?
They don't know the date yet.
All right, well, I also agree with that, whenever the date comes.
Okay, me too, yes.
So that motion was to allow you to make that decision on your own discretion.
Correct.
So it doesn't, not slam in stone, you're the decider.
As long as there's no conflict of data, that's
Yeah, that problem.
There's not much going on this year, so I don't think there'll be much conflict. Let's do, it's not on the agenda, but I know Jackie is on the call. From the electricity people. It's Jackie, the solar energy.
Solar.
There you go.
We also have Cindy on as well. I have brought both of them in to present to you guys.
So it's Irene, Jackie, and Cindy.
Hi, Irene. Hi, Jackie. Thanks. We thought this might be a good time to bring back around to all the village board members what we initially were working on before our whole world's changed in March. And it's kind of been a blessing because there's been some additional changes that is actually going to be able to save the village even more. So we thought this would be a wonderful time to let you guys know what that is. And if Cindy, you may want to explain a little bit, but we're now able to look at demand meters that are less than 25 kilowatts a year, which was a really big discovery because the village has quite a few demand meters that we were only able to offer a 5% savings, and now we're able to offer a 10% savings. So that's going to increase the overall yearly savings to the village if you subscribe to the community solar farm by almost, well, actually it's more than double the amount of what the initial savings was going to be. So we're pretty excited about that. It's a good time, I think, to talk about if this is something that the village wants to move forward in this direction to save some money. And Cindy, you might want to take it from here to give a little bit more specifics.
Well, I think, Jackie, you pretty much summed it up. So, Mike, I'll open it up to you. Where did you guys leave off the last time that we spoke, and what have your questions been since then? And then I can focus my discussion a little more directly.
So I think the last time, or where we left this was, we need to do an RFP for this type of a service. Since it's municipal. And I don't remember if we finished the RFP or sent it out yet, or let me check the date on that. He'll be here later at the meeting, so we can ask him.
Okay.
Why don't we check and see if there's any opposition to the electricity provider we already used, to see if there's any contractual issues?
Right.
I don't know if Nate had gotten back on that.
That's a good question. We were checking into that.
I
And,
can't hear him. And I can't hear him.
he asked if we were checking with the mega that we used, just to make sure that everything was good, which I think we did earlier on. So I think it was, we need to just write the RFP and send it out, honestly.
And was there any discussion about how long they can keep that out there for? Was it a week, I think we were talking about?
Yeah, it's not very long, it's a week, so we just need to get on that, I think. Just go COVID happened. Everything got scrambled around.
Right.
So we'll get Nate on that when he gets here.
Does anyone have any additional questions regarding the program?
Thank you.
Does everybody know about the program? I don't know who's there with me there, but,
So it's Fran's here, Charles is here, Russell's here, Ron's here, Laura's online.
Okay.
Everybody's here.
Thanks,
Looks like we can save about, if I'm reading the chart right, about $1,600 a year possibly.
No, we sent you a new one, I'm sorry.
That's the old chart.
You just got a new one. Our calculation, I did add quickly and I was setting it fast, it's my mistake. But the savings, the annual savings will be $4,340.69. And over the course of the life of the farm, it's substantial. Speaking half of that number is in 25 years.
Yeah, it's over $100,000, so it's pretty sizable. And if you, I don't know if you want to do this now, Mike, or wait for others to arrive, but if you want to, you can let me share my screen and I can show you the numbers, the correct numbers if you'd like.
You can, nobody else here can see it, but on the projector.
Okay. Well, I did email it to you as a PDF.
Yep, so we'll get it to the group.
Great. And I'll send you, once we're done tonight, I may have to tweak a couple of other things. So hold off on sending it and I'll send you a final version tonight that you can send out to everybody else. How's that sound?
Okay, that sounds good. We get the RFP going. All right, so that wasn't on the agenda. So next we'll do the Cornell Design Connect presentation slash. Well, yeah, we'll do that first.
Yeah, so I'm going to steal your copy.
Oh, yeah.
So the kids are all, the students are all out for the semester, so
Try to get you on the phone. Can everybody hear Abby?
hi all. So Cornell is out for the semester, so they were not available tonight to talk. So I'm here to share their plan. They initially, when we were first working on this, no.
Hold on.
there you go.
Is that better?
Okay, apologies to everyone in the room because I have the loudest voice in the room. Okay. Yeah. It's in my nature to be kind of loud. So when we first started working on this plan pre-COVID, the Cornell Design Connect program had a $500 fee, which they waived because they weren't able to complete the project like they had hoped. But we did make some good headway while they were here. So this report I emailed out to everyone today. I apologize for the last minute email, but the piece that's missing from this is really a larger scale community engagement. So the weekend we were scheduled to start that was when COVID, everything shut down. So what they've prepared in this plan for us, they have, all of the community partners who they engaged with. They have an introduction to the project, so what North Avenue Park is all about and where it is. A timeline for the things that they did accomplish, which they did do several site visits. Mayor Barada and I went and met with them. They met with a bunch of artists. They talked to members from the host team. So this is the DRI plan that maps out all of the projects. And then here is their site analysis. So you all are aware of the existing conditions. It's sort of wet site. It can't be built on. So there are a number of issues with that site. So the plan that they put together addresses those issues. So, and like I said, I emailed it out. So they addressed the issues that are outlined in the DRI. So it's required to have a stage, an amphitheater, parking, so it has parking. And then they address issues that the community brought up, like safety issues like lighting, access to the North Avenue side, so there's access to the shops and things like that. And then they also put in a rain garden. And so what that is basically a way for the water, if there's storm water or excess water on the site, it's a way to soak into the ground in a more ecologically friendly way. And then they had a dry well installed underneath. So, let's see. Headed in the wrong direction. Then what they prepared, they outlined planting selections that were easy to maintain so that Jeff and his team aren't having to go and mow all the time or anything like that. You can kind of see images there, plans. And then they outlined the public art selection plan, trying to figure out whether that would be an RFP from the village as part of the DRI, which is likely what it would need to be. And also trying to figure out a way for the park to complement the surrounding area. So the fire station, the fire department are right next door and are key community partners in this. So the steamer house, there are a lot of moving parts. So when we heard about the steamer house, we wanted to be sure to include that as not necessarily part of the plan, but as a cohesive unit to the park, to complement the park. So they weren't sure exactly where that was going, and everyone was still working out those details. But they did leave a spot for it. So they were planning on it being where, hopefully it will be, where the barber shop is, and then the park that will surround that will complement that. So any of the sculptures that are there, any of the benches, anything like that will reflect what's around the steamer house. So, like I said, a lot of moving parts. They did offer for us to apply again, and they would continue this work. If that's of interest to all of you, I could certainly work with the mayor to draft another grant request to them. It wouldn't be the fall semester. They're not sure what is happening with Cornell next semester, but likely the spring semester they'd be coming back to do the work. And by then we would have a lot of our sort of issues and things worked out. So if that's agreeable, I'm happy to do that. You don't have to let me know today. Does anyone have any questions about this plan?
What is this?
That's the rain garden. So it's basically it's a fancy word for a well that's going to soak up the water.
How
So
deep is it?
not very deep at all, and it would have plants surrounding
When
it.
you say not very deep, do you know?
Like not something someone could swim in, but I would say
What
like
about something that's going to fall?
a fountain, sort of like that. But I'll check for sure and let you know how deep it would be.
Or would that be a water feature that
Would it do,
children can play in?
yeah, would it do
No.
anything but just sit there and look like that?
Yeah, it's designed to soak up any sort of storm
I
water
mean,
at the
like
lowest level.
lighting or something that shoots up, or somehow it's art, right?
Yeah, I mean, we could get fancy with it for sure. Yeah,
I mean, the last thing we need in our village is another standing body of water that doesn't.
yeah, no, and that's not the intention to, because that was my concern too. I was like, what in the world is a rain garden and why do we want that? And it's absolutely to act as an ecological way to trap water. So, because you're gonna have, you may have standing water on that site anyways. I mean, if it rains, you see standing water there. So this would trap it and it would trickle down
Like if
through
we
the ground.
recycled and did something,
Yeah,
I mean, it's
Yeah.
art.
yeah,
It's incorporate art into that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just a circle of water.
yeah.
The solar fountain, the solar thing. Yeah,
Lights,
solar fountain,
colors,
yeah.
something.
I'm sure they could do something.
I guess what does it look like when there's no rainwater in it?
From what I understand, it would always have water in it, because the groundwater.
Okay.
So, but I'll ask.
They don't do something where
Yeah, it
it's
would
like a
be
low
there.
power went there and then all those days.
Yeah, it would need to be aerated, so it doesn't,
Mosquitoes.
yeah.
You
mosquitoes and mold,
know,
test.
I imagine that there's some sort of system in it, like the fountain, to keep the water circulating so you don't have issues like that. But I'll find out for sure.
oh, thank you.
Anybody else?
So we do have that report. I can put it on our website for everybody.
Yep.
It's a public thing, so I
Yep.
can put it up on our website in the DRI section as far as anybody is looking for it from the public.
Yeah, and their hope is really to have more community engagement. I mean, they did work with a group of artists, they did work with the hose team, but expanding beyond that to make sure that they're capturing feedback from the community who immediately surrounds that park, that's really an important piece that we need to continue working on.
And that, I mean, that's an important piece. Eventually, we're gonna hire, hopefully, an architect,
Right.
or an architect firm to take all these DRI projects from conceptual to reality. That RFP is done, we just haven't sent it out yet because of COVID uncertainties with the money and all that kind of stuff. But eventually, I mean, all of that has to be taken into account with this part, so.
So do we need to make a motion that this group? Okay.
Unless you want us to apply the next time, which would be for a while.
It would be, I think it was due in March, is that right?
I think so.
So I can, as we
Back
get
to us in
closer.
March.
Yeah, as we get closer, I'll let you know when it is, and you know, things may change by then too. So you may have another group that you want to work with or something like that, so, but I'm happy to write it and work with them if the village wants.
This was more just to close out. Normally, they would come do a big thing, but
Right.
because of all the stuff that happened.
So will the amphitheater be equipped with electric
Mhm.
setup for fans and stuff?
Yep. Yep. And I should also mention a fence between the park and applied technology.
Right.
Well, and also probably a fence along North Avenue, right?
You know, they weren't sure what they were gonna do to make that look like an entrance, but we did talk about it a little bit. They were talking about the art, making the artwork be sort of a fence-like structure. So yeah, there'd be,
Shrubbery?
what's that?
Maybe shrubbery?
Something like that, yeah. I mean, there is a drop off there, so there would need to be some sort of barrier. But they weren't certain exactly what that would look
I'm
like.
sure they come up with some kind of abstract design.
Yeah, what they
It's like
wanted to do was they didn't want to take over what our community and regional artists could do. So we were very careful about them not designing artwork for the park or pieces for the park because it needs to reflect our community. So we wanted to be mindful of that and make sure that,
So it's something that we come up with could be incorporated into it?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Let's see,
Well,
let's
that's smart.
start working on the fence, Joe.
Belly flops into the rain garden.
Slide. Yeah,
There you go.
into the water garden.
Alright. Any
All
other
right.
questions, or we're good?
Everybody get Lori good? Yeah, thumbs up. You want to do the steamer thing? Nate's not here yet. I have his letter.
Oh, you do? Okay, so we can talk about that too. And Pat is on, so
That's
Pat,
on this.
Pat may be better to speak about it than me.
I talked to Nate this afternoon. He drafted the letter between the Ocean Village and Steve Osbury, Applied Technology. Looks good from our end. Said he sent it to state's councils. So I presume he will be fine with it. Basically just outlines all the parameters we've been talking about. past 6 months, designates the property based on a survey by Williams Edsel, codifies that based on the assessment of Roger Troop, real estate properties are almost equal in value. So I believe, and he's not there, so I don't want to speak for him, but I believe he was asked for board approval to have the mayor sign that agreement on behalf of the village. And then he said the deed component of his law office would go to work in actually drafting the deed transfer paperwork. And then it would be on the host team and the village to enter into a real property license agreement, which would outline responsibilities, maintenance, and all that stuff. So that's a conversation I had with him about 3 p.m. So that's basically a summary of the letter of intent that's been drafted. So that's where we're at as far as that goes.
Yeah, I can read the letter if you want, it's not very long. It's like 5 pages, so the last 3 pages of it are just definitions. But it says, this letter will serve as an expression of the parties' mutual intent to enter into a land exchange and steamer display agreement with respect to the premises located at 99 North Avenue, Vigo, New York, and a portion of tax map ID that gives the 2 tax maps IDs that make up the other part. The Village of Owego, at the request of the Owego Hose Teams Incorporated, intends to enter into said land transaction with Applied Technologies Manufacturing Corp. and then enter into a steamer display agreement with the Owego Hose Teams Incorporated. It's the parties' mutual intent that such agreements be negotiated between the parties in accordance with the terms described within Exhibit A, attached here, and otherwise containing terms and conditions mutually acceptable to these parties. All parties acknowledge and agree with the letter of intent, and such is only as an expression of the present intention and desire to conduct negotiations with respect to land and steamer display agreements in connection with the above referenced premises. This letter of intent is subject in all respects to each of us conducting such inquiries and due diligence as we deem appropriate, and to the negotiation, execution, and delivery of a contract which is in all respects satisfactory to both of us. Then you have Exhibit A, which lists out all of the surveys, land parcels, the statement from Kachuk that says that they were basically equal in value. I got it right for the meeting. I have it here. Anybody wants copies of it? Jeff stores the box. I can send it to you.
Send me an email.
Yeah,
I'd like it sent to me.
I can do that.
Thank you. So this contract, this draft agreement, all the language is in between the Hose Team Inc. and Applied Technology, and it's not the village.
So the land is between us and Applied Technologies, and then there's another agreement that we'll have to enter into with the hose team, basically to display the steamer and the building on the site.
Okay, what you just read out loud is like how we fill in that last part, like, you know, having all 3 of them listed right there,
Yeah.
you know? But anyways, you'll send it to me?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay.
I think it should be here in 15 minutes or so. We can come back to it, I suppose, if you guys want to.
Fran, you had a question about the, and Pat can probably respond to that better than I can, but I know what the answer
Okay,
is.
well,
but-
essentially what I'm asking, okay, the village would still own the property, and the host team would be responsible for maintaining the building, right?
You would have some sort of, so the village would own the property and we would have an agreement that isn't made yet. Who's gonna maintain it, whether it's the host team, us, what the deal is.
And
That's not something we can vote on now.
The team would take on the maintenance of the property on the building as part of the agreement. So the other team would do that, so it's not a taxpayer expense.
So that's the intent. I know when Nate emailed me this, I'll send you guys his email, but he said that he drafted this up as a letter of intent, but not necessarily like set in stone, it just says,
Not a
this is
final
what we're
agreement.
looking at, and we agree to it. So,
And from the hosting perspective, signing this, give us the assurance from the village that they are on one project, they want to partner with not only us, but, you know, Steve and his operation, and moving forward, benefit not only the village, but also one of the few remaining manufacturing facilities. Yes, Steve's going to benefit from this as well.
And here comes Nate right now. We're gonna throw him right in the bus.
So this is not something we can vote on until we all get to the
Nate's here now. Hi, Nate. So we were just chatting about the steamer house update. So if you want to start back over with your letter of intent.
Yep, so put together a letter of intent. It would be between the village, Mr. Lounsbury, the host teams, and the VOO Volunteer Fire Department, Inc., which I learned from Mr. Gavin actually owns the steamer. So we have a 4-party LOI. And talking with Mr. Gavin, he has no issues with the language in it. You know, it just says in really generic terms that the host teams, the fire department, which the chief would sign for, and the village will figure out some arrangement regarding the construction of a building to be located on this parcel, and an arrangement about insurance and utilities and things like that relating to. And then the piece for Mr. Lounsbury would simply be, you know, fortunately, a lot of the things that we would need to move forward with the transaction have actually already been done by the host team. That would be that survey, the appraisal information, Mr. Chu, and then LOI just kind of simply recites, we'll do a usual and customary commercial real estate transaction in Cuyahoga County. I don't believe Mr. Lounsbury will have any issues with that really generic language. It is an LOI, which means if for some reason something pops up between now and when we would anticipate closing, either party can still walk away. We still have to kind of negotiate the terms of the business deal. But this is an expression of intent, and it would authorize me to really kind of start working on it, because the board would have then basically approved the transaction, and now it's like, okay, attorney, work with the other side and get the actual documents and all the other things in place. So if you folks authorize it tonight, you know, it would
I
be.
didn't explain it that good. Just so you know.
It would be subject to, of course, to Mr. Lounsbury looking at it and reviewing it. Again, I don't think he'll have any issues with it. If he does, they'll probably be pretty minor. If you folks authorize the LOI tonight, then you folks can sign it, the chief can sign it, Gavin can sign it, and then Mr. Lounsbury will sign it if he wants to. If he pushes back on anything, we can suss that out over the next couple of weeks. But I don't see that happening.
So to answer some potential skepticism from board members, this particular thing does not absolutely bind us to this. This is just another step along. It shows that we're looking at it. If we find some difficulty, don't want to do this, we still haven't said we're going to do it, but we're moving it.
With that said, I would move that we accept the LOI as written, since it doesn't lock us into anything concrete.
Right, and if Mr. Lounsbury or, I don't know, the host team pushes back on any of the language, saying as written, as presented right now, if there's any substantive changes, we'll have to come back to the village board to get it approved again.
I would second that.
Okay.
Well, I would say, since the board has not really gotten a chance to look at the agreement, we need to be able to read that ourselves before we vote on it.
Which we're going to do. I mean, this is not voting on an agreement, this is just a letter of intent.
It's just saying that we're interested. We're not locking in any swap or dollar amount or anything. We're just saying, yes, we are interested in this transaction. It may go forward, it may not.
Right, the biggest piece, to my mind anyway, is the actual agreement that you'll have with the host company about the building that they put in place and who's responsible for maintaining the steamer and paying for the utilities and all that stuff. And as it's written right now, everything is kind of contingent on the deal being worked out with the host company about those variations. Then we don't have the full arms around all of the business terms of that yet, because no one from the village has sat down and negotiated it yet. Really, the LOI, by approving the LOI, you're saying, to the mayor, to me, okay, we're broadly interested. Now, try to go work out the details. It's kind of like, we've got a cart and a horse, and sometimes this cart has been getting in front of the horse, but now we're telling the horse to start pulling it along a little bit.
Appreciate this.
But Fran, I hear your point.
Laura, do you have any questions? I know you had questions before Nate got here.